is a super city that rolls like no other. Home to 8 million people, New York's demand for food and utilities is constant, and dependable transportation is vital.
One train breaking down would create 10,000 people delayed going to work.
Time is money in the Big Apple, and everything from subways to supertankers runs non-stop.
You can't mess around down here, otherwise somebody's going to get killed.
Punch New York's time clock and take a 24-hour ride on its massive transportation system. Good morning, New York City. Time to grab a coffee, pick tomatoes, hail a cab, take the ferry, unload some hammers from China, drive the GWB, and hop the 710 into the city. Are we there yet?
I can only do what I can do. There's a lot of traffic today.
There's always a lot of traffic in New York, and all roads lead to the hub, Manhattan. 322 square miles, 8 million people. It's busy in the 5 boroughs. Manhattan, Brooklyn, the Bronx, Staten Island, and Queens are all about taking care of business. Trains like the Long Island Railroad, Metro North, Amtrak, and PATH bring commuters into Grand Central Terminal and Penn Station. Buses go to the Port Authority. The MTA subway system, buses, and taxis move people within the city. Bridges like the Brooklyn, Triborough, Queensboro, and George Washington carry traffic over the rivers. Tunnels such as the Holland, Lincoln, and Queens Midtown transport people and goods below. They all link to a vast network of highways, avenues, and streets known as the Manhattan Grid. Add 3 airports, plus the harbor, and the scale of New York's transportation system is staggering. It's morning rush hour on the George Washington Bridge. The busiest bridge in the world, the George Washington connects New Jersey to the island of Manhattan. It takes in $1 million in tolls a day and costs $60 million a year to maintain. Moving 300,000 vehicles into Manhattan every morning isn't easy. Ask toll collector Wanda Milliner.
How you doing today? All right. Have a great day. I'm the first person they see in the morning, so I try my best to give them a smile.
You get a receipt, please?
Sure. Most of the time I have my money in my hands. I think it helps the flow into New York, and it makes the people more pleasant. Because one thing our customers do not like, they do not like traffic.
Nearby on the New Jersey side of the bridge, Ralph Molini at the GWB Control Center makes sure nothing stops traffic.
If there's a problem, we can redirect traffic at any point. We have approximately 220 cameras out on the roadways, and we have a person here 24/7. We monitor wind speed, wind direction, which is very important to a bridge. We also monitor roadway temperature. There are evacuation plans if an emergency occurs. Most of the bridge lanes would be used for traffic exiting the city. This board behind me, that's part of our intelligent transportation system that has microwave detectors out on the roadway that are constantly watching traffic. Wherever you see blue squares, that's an actual live incident occurring at the George Washington Bridge.
The minute an incident occurs, emergency response kicks in.
Stand by.
Roger, copy. Bridge lane 8. Bridge lane 8, DV type 1.
Got it. We'll take care of it. From this point right here to New York, it's me. If you got a flat, I'm the guy to show up. If you're diabetic and you're having an attack, I'm the guy that shows up. If you got a horse or a chicken in your car and it gets on the roadway, I'm still the guy that's going to show up. On a daily, on a 2 to 10, with the Yankee game going, cars overheating, flats, I might handle 8 to 9 cars on a day. That's not counting fires, buses, trucks. We're talking about just automobiles.
Handling 8 cars a day would put Paul Santos in harm's way 3,000 times a year.
So what we're going to do is push you off to 178th Street.
Okay. Just a couple of weeks ago, a couple of guys had a car carrier that the top 2 cars got loose. And they were in Bridge Lane 2, which is that lane over there going eastbound. And the cars were hanging into Bridge Lane 1, which is the lane going westbound. So they had to figure out how to get these cars back onto the truck. Anytime we leave the garage, it's dangerous. It's always dangerous.
Don't like danger? Problem solved. Take the train.
Our commute into the city, by express, it's only about half an hour. So we're actually closer door to door to our jobs than a lot of our friends who live out in deepest Brooklyn.
I've been getting the 749 train for about 25 years.
I avoid the front of the train and the back of the train because they're more crowded. This is an express train, so it's usually very crowded.
I sit and read the paper. I look out the window in the train mostly.
This is the train to Grand Central.
A monument to New York's Gilded Age, Grand Central Terminal is a vital hub for busy commuters. It spans 48 acres, extends 13 stories under Park Avenue, and is the largest train station in the world. If Grand Central's walls could talk, the person they'd talk to is Dan Brucker.
Every day, coming through this terminal, pass 700,000 people. That's the entire population of the city of San Francisco, or the entire state of Alaska. Now, this train terminal also boasts 42 track platforms. Over 600 trains, bearing about 1,200 customers come here every day. We have trains platforming here during the rush hour every 58 seconds.
Once the train takes you into the city, its underground cousin, the New York subway, gets you around. The system is made of 25 interconnected lines stretching across 4 boroughs. 68 bridges and 14 tunnels carry track into 468 stations. Today, New York has the largest subway fleet in the world. John Doherty, Deputy General Manager of New York City Transit, is proud of the subway he has served for 30 years.
It's the lifeline of the city of New York. We carry about 7.5 million people a day. We have 660 miles of track, almost 6,500 subway cars. It's just huge.
I depend on the subway because that's my main form of transportation, getting from Brooklyn to Manhattan to the Bronx to Queens.
The fastest way to get around the city.
Without the subway, the city would come to a grinding halt. Can you imagine all those millions of people walking or riding bikes or taking cabs or driving cars? Forget it. The city would come to a screeching halt.
A super city must be fed, and transporting food into New York City can be a major challenge. Especially for colossal cargo ships 3 football fields in length that sail into New York Harbor every day. You can't dock an international ship that size without somebody who has intimate knowledge of the local waters. And for that, you call tugboat captain Jeffrey McAllister. His clan is a part of New York Harbor history.
I'm 5th generation in this business. My family started in 1864. The harbor is the key to New York City. If there were no tugboats around here, all your waterfront construction would come to a halt. Your bridges couldn't have been made. All your products that are brought into Port Elizabeth right now, none of that would come in. And I don't know if everyone is aware, but almost 90% of what you consume, it all comes in on boxes.
Next on NYC Inside Out, can Captain Ellis thread the needle with a supertanker? And speed is money at the container terminal. But don't apply for the job if you've got vertigo. It's up to docking pilot Captain Robert Ellis and a crew of McAllister tugboats to make sure she docks safely.
We go out with the tugs and meet the ship as it comes underneath the Verrazano Bridge. The Freedom is coming from the Far East via the Suez Canal because he's too wide to fit through the Panama Canal. It's one of the biggest container ships that come into New York. 2,500 full-size tractor-trailer trucks will fit on this ship. Whatever's manufactured all around the world, that's what this ship will have on it.
We're going to drop the pilot off. At a certain point, he's going to call us in either on the bow or the stern, and we're going to start pushing on her, get her towards the dock.
We're going to be taking it down to a container terminal called Howland Hook.
With the size of the vessels, we need the tugs to help guide the ship into the berths.
Tugs can push a larger vessel around a corner, target extra power where it's needed, and help dock a ship against a strong wind. If a tugboat has Z-drive, it has the agility of an NFL running back. It can turn 360 degrees in the water and stop on a dime. Carrying 2 locomotive engines with a total of 3,000 horsepower, the thrust goes through a gearbox directly connected with the shaft and propeller. Special rudders give a Z-drive boat added maneuverability.
Being a tug operator, it's hours of boredom for moments of sheer terror.
Just because of the size of the ships and all the traffic in New York Harbor, you always have to be on your toes. It's exciting, you know? It's an adrenaline rush.
If speed drops below 15 miles an hour, the ship can lose its ability to steer. The tugs must transfer Captain Alice to the Freedom on the fly. Safe on board, Captain Alice takes command from the ocean pilot.
You're slow ahead?
Yep.
All right, great. I got you.
Okay, Bob.
His knowledge of the harbor, its tides and depth, is indispensable.
Steady. Steady.
Captain Alice positions his tugs.
We're going to have to throw a heaving line up to the crew of the ship, and they'll pull our line up. Hey, Patty, leave me plenty of slack, all right?
Yeah, you're going to fly back.
Yeah. Yes, we're all fast now, bro.
If you're standing in the wrong place when a line snaps, it'll come shooting right back at you, cut you in half. Take your leg off, your arm. Very dangerous.
Now Captain Ellis has to sail the Freedom under the Bayonne Bridge. Gateway to the New York Container Terminal, the bridge spans the Kilvan Cull, a 3-mile tidal strait between Bayonne, New Jersey and Staten Island.
The height of the Bayonne Bridge is 151 feet above the water. The next class of vessel they're coming out with is not going to fit under this bridge. It's a major problem. We have a tug made fast aft with a line. Should anything happen, he can control the ship if we, say, lose power or steering. Steady. Steady. 248. There's been several instances where the bridge has been hit by the mast of the ship. Some of the ships still have to come in at low water, which gives you an extra 4.5 feet to get underneath the bridge.
4.5 feet may clear the ship above. Tankers can sit as much as 30 feet underwater, but the Freedom only has 24 inches to spare below. The average depth of the harbor is 19 feet. That means Captain Ellis and the tugs must steer the ship through a narrow channel dredged in the bottom. The tide must be low, but not too low. The currents are swift, and the margin for error is just 4.5 feet above and 24 inches below.
Hard to starboard. Hard to starboard.
If the 1,000-foot ship drifts or runs aground, it's a disaster. No wonder it takes 5 years to become a docking pilot.
Steady. Steady.
Time, tide, and experience pay off. Captain Ellis clears the bridge.
Security call, the MOL Freedom. We're west end of Shooter's Island. We're westbound. We're headed for Howland Hook. Dead slow ahead. Dead slow ahead.
Next stop, the New York Container Terminal on Staten Island. One of 4 major maritime freight facilities in the harbor, it handles imports from all over the globe. Here, Captain Ellis and the tugs sign off.
We're in berth. They're going to let your lines go. We're off to the next job.
And the ship's cargo will be unloaded.
Our objective is to get the first container moving off that vessel within 5 minutes.
Jim Devine, president of the New York Container Terminal, presides over a highly orchestrated army of longshoremen. He ordered 4 gangs of 30 men each to work the Freedom.
I like to refer to our industry as a stealth industry. The general public doesn't even see the comings and the going of the vessels. They're happening 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year.
The gangs are dedicated to speed and safety and measure their progress in moves.
I try to do 30 an hour. The faster you do the job, the happier the shipping companies are. When it gets windy, it's a little more tricky. The whole cab shakes up here, everything shakes. The less you try to think about falling out of here, the better off you are. Every position on this pier is dangerous. From working down on the dock to working up here in the crane, you can't mess around down here. Otherwise, somebody's going to get killed.
All right, Kev, do me a favor. After this pick, go over to number 4 inshore and give me 1 pick out of there. Should be an APLU. One of the ways to tell a crane operator is good is how smooth they are. You're dealing with only a few inches that you have to play with when you land the boxes. It really takes about a year for a crane operator to get the feel of everything and how it works.
Work is done, all hands and eyes and radio, good communication. You got to have the guys downstairs know what they're doing. They got to trust you, and you got to trust them. teamwork.
Can't get anything done by yourself around here, that's for sure. Everybody's always got to watch somebody's back. You got 40,000-ton containers coming down over your head. Pieces of metal could break off a container or rain at any time. Bolts could fall. Truck drivers going by constantly, and we're a 24/7 operations, so it can be very dangerous.
It's how big you are, it's what you got in you.
Dawn Renero is one of the few women on the team.
It's one big family. You're here as much as you're home. Actually, you're here more than you're home. Slow week is 75 hours. A busy week is 115 hours. The most dangerous thing is being tired. Into your 50th hour, rolling on the clock. Your eyes, you fight to keep open. Coffee don't work anymore. And we're ready to go. I love my job. I look forward to growing old with these guys.
That's it, nice and easy, nice and easy. My father was here 40 years, and I got the job 11 years ago. My grandfather before my father was a longshoreman, and whole family here.
My mother's father, my father's father, my brother-in-law, my nephews, were all longshoremen. When you come down here, it's like you're home.
When home is a super city, it has global impact.
Approximately over a third of the commerce into and out of this country comes through New York Harbor and creates a tremendous economic engine. It's a very efficient transportation system. People are getting their strawberries in February and beer all times of the day. The tiger prawns that you get at your restaurant in New York City is probably going to come out of Vietnam and then gets delivered in a very timely fashion.
Over in Greenpoint, Brooklyn, Mike Lucarelli of Jolie's Seafood understands the demand for good food. He loads his delivery van with local and imported fish that arrived in the last 24 hours.
We deal with restaurants, caterers, a couple of hospitals. The earlier we get out when we're making deliveries, the better it is for us. We avoid all the traffic. Driving a truck in New York City during the day is pretty tough. Between 12 and 1 is usually the normal time that we deliver to Vinny and Oli.
Locanda Vini e Oli restaurant in Brooklyn is owned and operated by Chef Catherine de Zagan.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, Catherine. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
All right. Parts number 1, your cockles, and your branzini. She buys cockle clams, branzini, calamari. She buys octopus, mussels, sometimes shrimp. All right, Catherine. This is why seafood is expensive, because of all the transportation costs. Air, freighting, it's all built into the price.
So why not cut costs? Catch fish right out of the East River.
I wouldn't eat anything coming out of the East River. Believe me, I don't want to know what comes out of the East River.
Food comes freight to plate. But can a megatropolis still get local produce? Just an hour away from downtown Manhattan lies Stokes Farm.
We are so close to New York City that you can see the Empire State Building from the roof of our barn.
A family operation since 1873, it is part of a produce system called the Green Market, dedicated to supplying New Yorkers with locally grown vegetables.
We pick them red, and within 24 to 48 hours, they're on somebody's plate. And that's what's really important.
The Benagis take their place in New York's food chain seriously.
You're developing a direct relationship with your food. You know, like that guy's my butcher, that guy's my barber, and that guy's my farmer.
Stokes Farm sells at the 14th Street Market, as well as direct to restaurants.
It's nice to have your chef's cell phones on speed dial. There's a lot of French chefs that I can't understand what they say, but they call and they order all kind of stuff on my cell phone, and they hope to have it the next day. We are 27 miles from Union Square. It's 50 minutes to get to the city on the weekend. During the week, it's about an hour and 10. We really can't complain.
Tom Margada of Stokes Farm is selling their ripe tomatoes at the Union Square Green Market.
The people that are shopping here, for the most part, know they're getting something that was just picked for them yesterday.
How do you tell if these are ripe?
The most surprising question to me is when we're asked for something that's not grown locally. Someone comes up totally out of the blue and asks us for a lime or a lemon or a pineapple. And we're like, well, it's not grown here, so it's not here in the market.
The traffic is really at its peak during lunch hours.
Back in the city, workers have a short window to eat. Regardless of whether it's fresh, frozen, or came in on a cargo ship, it's got to be fast. East of Staten Island, at the north end of Manhattan, lies the Ghost Yard. Once the site of an old cemetery, The Metropolitan Transit Authority's 207th Street maintenance facility is where old subway cars prepare for their final ride.
We pull off any rubber, any sharp objects. We'll take out glass, pipes, freon, doors, seats, insulation, light bulbs, garbage. The car goes through a car wash, all the grease is removed, all the dust is removed.
These cars have been in service roughly 35 years. You know, it's sad. If these cars could talk, the stories they could tell. You know? How many World Series games have they been to? How many football games have they been to? How many people fell in love in these cars? How many people died in these cars? I mean, it's sad. It is sad.
Cleaned and stripped, the subway cars are loaded onto a barge bound for their final destination. Coming up on NYC Inside Out, what would you do for a megawatt necklace? Find out who puts the bling on the GWB. It's 2:30 in the afternoon, a clear day on the George Washington Bridge. Time for the electric cowboys to hitch up and ride the barrel. Meet Todd Donow and Joe Wozniak, the guys who keep the 3,000 lights on the bridge shining.
Cable on the bottom is the barrel, and that's what supports the bridge going across, and that's what we'll be walking on. This garment's really safe, except if you fall.
Today, they are relamping the necklace. A string of 156 lights added to the bridge in 1962 for the New York World's Fair.
The light bulbs that you install and replace on the bridge are 250-watt mercury vapor lights, and that needs a ballast that ignites the lamp and then keeps it glowing. And the ones you have in your house are incandescent. You just put it in anywhere, turn a switch on, and that's it.
In a couple of months, we're going to start changing them out to an LED, saving electricity, saving some money, maybe have a different line of light. And I actually enjoy being up here. Once you're doing it, it's a great feeling. You know, you look down and everything's hectic down there and everything's nice and calm up here. And a nice, beautiful day, this is the place to be.
It transports 100 million vehicles a year, and you can see it from space. But for resident engineer Andrea Georgie-Bacher, the best thing about the George Washington Bridge is it's built to last.
For a civil engineer, this is a dream job. The GWB is a National Historic Landmark. It's one of our grand structures in the United States. At the time the bridge was being designed in the mid-20s, there were no calculators, no computers. Calculations were done using slide rule. So in terms of designing beams and sizing elements, where there was any doubt, that size could be doubled to account for any unknowns. There's no answer to how long it can stand. The way it's been maintained, the bridge could really last forever.
The GWB is 3,500 feet long, with 73,000 tons of steel on the upper deck alone. A lower deck was added in 1962 for a total of 14 traffic lanes. Two 800-foot towers hold 4 main cables that are 3 feet in diameter and a mile long. The cables bear over 26,000 interwoven wires thinner than a pencil. If you stretch those wires out, they would reach halfway to the moon. Midtown Manhattan in the afternoon. Everywhere people are on the move, stressing an already loaded transportation grid. New York has the largest fleet of buses in the world. 4,373 public buses alone, serving over 666,000 people. The bus uses routes not served by the subway.
The bus is great. It's a great way to get around in the city. Yeah, it takes longer, but I prefer the longer commute rather than the hectic commute. But there are certain bus lines that are like, you snap your fingers and you're there.
Meanwhile, over 1.5 million people are crossing the intersections of Times Square.
God, I hate Jersey drivers. I hate out-of-town drivers. I hate old drivers.
Tell that to the Traffic Management Center. Try getting around town without it.
VQE westbound at Atlantic Avenue.
Extra and partial block due to an accident.
The TMC is the all-seeing eye on the streets of New York.
Our core function is incident management and move traffic as quickly as possible, because this city is always on the move. A small amount of time is amplified. It'd be like a domino effect. An incident just keeps building because more and more cars are coming.
Both state and city transportation departments, plus the New York City Police, are under one roof for instant interface and quick response.
And they are moving. Northbound FDR Drive at Old Slip, you have a disabled vehicle in the rightmost lane.
In a lot of places, you don't have this cohesive type of environment with 3 different agencies working on the same thing.
New York City is a confined area. We cannot build more highway, we cannot build more bridges, so we can just manage what we have. Now we are in the middle of rush hours. Traffic, it's moving well.
The way the monitors are set up, we're capturing critical areas, the limited access highways that make this city work. In this case, we're really concentrating on the outflow of traffic leaving the city. As you can see, we're looking at the Brooklyn-Queens Expressway, very vital cog that's attached to the Brooklyn Bridge, Manhattan Bridge, Williamsburg Bridge, and goes all the way to the tip of Staten Island, all the way to the tip of the Bronx and the end of Queens.
The center does it all, from electronically changing traffic signs to fixing broken guardrails.
We do have emergency response units in the field patrolling the roadway. That information we're coordinating with our partners in the police department, the state DOT, and our city engineers, and their function adjusting the traffic light patterns, variable message signs, diverting traffic, and it's all one little symphony that we have here.
All over town, taxis, buses, cars, subways, and trains shift into high gear to move the masses leaving work.
It's 4:09 p.m. It is time to go home.
Commuters have been braving the crush at Grand Central Terminal for nearly a century.
Just the sheer volume of people that move in and out of the city, it's a little rough at times.
600 trains powered by electricity coming and going through a labyrinth of dark tunnels presents a unique safety challenge. The Grand Central Control Center is up to the task.
It's considered one of the most advanced and sophisticated control centers in the world.
Located in a vault called M42, it operates 24 hours a day, and the work is so security sensitive, its exact location is known only to employees with special clearance.
You've heard of air traffic controllers. Our job is rail traffic controllers to keep the trains moving, keep them on time, keep them safe. For instance, 2059 is leaving. When I put a signal in for him, it will lock the switches up, provide him with a route and a signal to leave Grand Central Terminal. Or you could have 18 different trains all moving within your particular territory at any time. You have trains that are having mechanical issues, trains with police involvement on board, medical issues, and then you can't just let the trains back up behind them. The job can definitely be stressful. A lot of unhappy people if these trains were to stop running. A lot of businesses would stop running. It's a crucial part of New York City's fabric.
The ultimate safety precaution is making sure trains don't collide. If the system detects 2 trains on a collision course, computers send an electrical stop signal through the rails. If the engineers do not stop their trains immediately, the train will shut off its own power and apply emergency brakes.
Since we put in this automatic train control in 1983, more than 2 billion rides have been taken on Metro-North trains, and not a single person lost a life or a limb or anything because of any one train smashing into another.
The trains at Grand Central may be foolproof, but sometimes commuters are not. Audrey Johnson in the information booth is there to help.
We can talk to anywhere from 500 to 1,000 people in maybe an hour plus. It just depends on what's going on, what day of the week it is. Everybody is always going somewhere.
But not everybody's interested in the next train.
A young lady asked, where could she heat her pizza? Another young lady wanted to know, where was Grand Central? This is what I told her to do. Close your eyes, turn around 3 times, and then open your eyes. You're in Grand Central.
Rush hour may be crazy, but nothing stops the New York subway. At the MTA 207th Street maintenance yard, everything from engine overhauls to wheel grinding goes on 24/7.
When I started here in 1979, it was like near ruin from deferred maintenance. the improvements that have been made over the last 29 years, it's absolutely incredible.
Without the maintenance and repair, you would have breakdowns, you would have people stuck in the tunnels, people wouldn't be able to get to work. One train breaking down would create approximately 10,000 people delayed going to work.
The biggest thing that we do is schedule maintenance, and last year I think it was 1,200 trucks we overhauled. This year we're scheduled to do 1,020.
Even with all the advancements available in our super-fast times, the subway still runs on a direct flow of electricity just as it did 100 years ago. Subway systems have 3 rails, 2 for the wheels and a third for power. The third rail carries 625 volts of direct current. Each car has a metal flange called a shoe that sends the current to cables that power electric motors mounted over wheel assemblies called trucks. Because the shoe is the lifeline to the third rail, it's important that foul weather doesn't get in the way.
In the wintertime, when we have snow and ice storms, sometimes we lose contact with the third rail because we have a buildup of ice on the third rail. So what we have is snow and ice shoes. The bottom is milled out to scrape the snow and the ice off the third rail, so we always have positive contact with the third rail during inclement weather.
Maintaining the wheels is crucial. Falling leaves and debris secrete oils onto the track that makes wheels spin and create flat spots. Ronald Matthews operates the wheel truing machine.
They come here and we make them nice and shiny and new.
At 200 pounds with 100 horsepower hard steel rotary grinders, the truing machine must be set in a bed of concrete for stability.
When we ride on the train, we feel good knowing that the train is running because we helped.
One of the oldest ways of getting from Staten Island into Manhattan is by boat. 60,000 commuters a day still take the ferry to work.
It's the best part of my commute, I would say. You hop on the ferry, it's a 20-minute ride, jump off the ferry, jump right onto the train, and you're there in like 20 minutes.
Run by the city of New York, the Staten Island Ferry Service makes the 5-mile, 25-minute voyage between St. George and Whitehall Street 109 times a day.
See the sunrise, sometimes sunset, see seagulls, see New York Harbor. Not that many people can say that from the view from their car. The ferry I love. I could do without the bus and the train.
Meanwhile, on the other side of Staten Island, the gangs working at the container yard are rolling into Hour 9 on the Freedom. If it looks like they haven't moved anything off the ship, it's because loading and unloading a supertanker occurs simultaneously.
You have tremendous market in waste going out of this country. You've got scrap automobile parts, paper going to Asia to be recycled to come back as the cartons for your DVDs. Ice cream, it's a major product going out.
The containers are put in piles in the yard according to how they're going to go up onto the ship. It's actually a very involved planning process.
Employing the latest computer technology, 2,500 containers leaving the U.S. can be color-coded by content, size, and temperature, as well as organized by bay and final destination.
When we bring a ship in, it's 2,500 or 2,600 moves, and we turn it around in less than 24 hours. And I watch that thing wrap up and leave the dock and sail. It's a great feeling. It's an exciting feeling to see it all happen, and to know that you were an integral part of the process.
It's nighttime in New York. The city that never sleeps earns its reputation when the sun goes down and traffic doesn't stop. It just takes on a different character.
The night shift, you're taking people out who are going out to have a good time, so it's a different energy. During the day, obviously, you're taking people that are going to work, and it's much more predictable. At night is much more unpredictable, and that's the good thing about driving at night. Anything can happen.
In Brooklyn, the first of 2 seatings has begun at Locanda Vigneoli. Today's fish delivery and farm-fresh tomatoes are tonight's dinner specials.
We actually have people coming from Connecticut, from New Jersey. We have Japanese people in Manhattan, and all the corners of Brooklyn. So we transport the food from all over the world, mostly Italy, to bring to the plate, and they travel from all over New York and beyond. What we do is try to get the best tomatoes from the farmer, whatever they have that just came out, that's at the sweetest.
Rocco?
Porta via per favore, 2 tagliate, 2 branzine.
Voilà, beautiful branzino.
Thank you. I used to work in a restaurant in the city, a very, very busy brasserie. We had like 100 of us working and avoiding each other with big trays of food and drinks and not that many accidents. You see New York with all the taxis and the people, and it's kind of like that in a larger scale. I love New York.
It's midnight, and the bridge and tunnel crowd heads for the trendy meatpacking district in lower Manhattan.
Late, like midnight, when the meatpacking district, that's rush hour in a sense.
There are an estimated 13,000 taxis prowling the streets of New York. With limos and other car services, the number of chauffeured vehicles rises to 50,000.
You get your right, miss? Living in the city, the cab's the best way. Subways, it's delays, you gotta wait. Every time I need to go anywhere, it's always the cab is the fastest way.
Tonight, the taxis are lining up at Hogs and Heifer's Saloon. Owner Michelle Dell welcomes people from all over the 5 boroughs.
They live in Staten Island, New Jersey, Queens, Brooklyn, the Bronx. When I was a kid, this was really a meat market, and there was never this much traffic down here unless you came in after 1 o'clock in the morning when you had all these massive trailers unloading meat.
I'm all about trains. The only time you take a cab is when it's late at night and you're going home.
Overnight hours, I'm like a farmer tending to the drunken crop. It's tough sometimes.
So many people think of their workday as a 9-to-5 workday, but there are people that get up at 1 o'clock in the morning and go to work. There are people that operate this city while we sleep.
Some of those people work the MTA night shift. It's 1 a.m. and John Doherty is checking on his crew.
We're here at Prospect Park Station in the midnight and early mornings when we try to do most of our maintenance work.
Tonight, the rail geometry car, a $12 million diagnostic machine, tests the gauge of the tracks.
The most important measurement that we do is the gauge, which is the distance between the 2 rails.
The 2 main rails of a subway track must remain at 4 feet 8.5 inches. Should wear and tear open this gap, a speeding train will derail. Laser sensors mounted on the geometry car create a schematic of the track and tunnel. One measures alignment. Another uses infrared to check the 3rd rail for gaps and worn spots that could cause sparking.
The gray area is a crosscut of a standard rail. The yellow lines is showing what we're looking at presently. You'll see the gray area beyond where the yellow line is. That means part of the rail has been sheared off. So we just remove that rail and put in a new rail.
The tracks are inspected every day. If there's a defect, it's reported immediately and it's repaired.
Coming up on NYC Inside Out, what only arrives in the middle of the night, costs $2 million, and always gets a police escort? It's 3 a.m. and the eastbound lanes of the George Washington Bridge are shutting down. It's not an accident. It's the delivery of new subway cars in Manhattan.
We're special. We were the only thing moving east, the subway cars.
Driving in from Pennsylvania, the trucks must arrive before dawn to avoid daytime traffic. Don Agressi has made the trip over 50 times.
This is about an average load for me. I haul subway cars and windmill towers. I've never ridden the subway. This is as close as I get to them. New York City would stop if they did not let the trucks in. They not only need trucks to come in with material, but they need trucks to haul their garbage out of the city. This place would drown in garbage if the trucks stopped rolling.
Driving 147,000 pounds of rolling weight on the streets of Manhattan is nerve-wracking. Not only can't you stop on a dime, sometimes you can't stop at all.
It's kind of tricky to keep everything going in a straight line. You're 114 feet long. There's a lot of steel plates up through here that we can't roll over. We have to roll around them. The weight of this truck didn't fall into it. We would actually tip over if we fell into one of them holes.
Don delivers his load safely to the 200.
They have to have the locomotive on site before we take the car off from the trailer for safety reasons, so that the car doesn't roll down the track. As long as the brakes were off and there was a downhill grade, that car would roll until it hit the bottom of Manhattan.
All right, good. We're on our rails.
It's always a relief to get the car off the trailer and have a safe run.
"4 a.m. in Greenpoint, Brooklyn. Mike Lucarelli, his partner Joe, and their crew at Jolie Seafood are well into another day.
I get up about 1:45, 45-minute drive. I'm here about 2:45.
When Mike says he's pinboning a ton of salmon, he means a ton of salmon.
This salmon comes from the Atlantic coast of Canada. Joe, how many cases did we get yesterday, salmon? 40 cases of salmon, or about 50, 60 pounds. A lot of it goes to a supermarket chain that we handle. 2,000 pounds of salmon, break it down, 8-ounce portions. We could probably feed about 4,000 people with that amount of salmon.
80% of the fish Jolie sells comes from the Atlantic coast. But what if Mike's customers need something more exotic?
I got frozen calamari from China. 1620s, I believe, are from Indonesia. Crab meat is also from China.
It comes into the New York ports and then it goes to preferred freezers. It's only a couple days before it gets to you.
All right, John, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
It's early morning on the Hudson River, and the old subway cars that were stacked 12 hours ago at the Ghost Yard are headed for open water. For the past 8 years, over 1,800 cleaned and stripped cars have found their final resting place in artificial reefs along the Atlantic seaboard. Mike Zakia and John Doherty never tire of the sight.
How cool is that, huh?
I can't imagine what the average citizen might think seeing a barge load of subway cars 18 miles off the coast of New Jersey.
They spent their whole life underneath the streets of New York City, and now they're going to spend the rest of eternity underneath the Atlantic Ocean, right? That's very cool.
This trip ends halfway between Cape May, New Jersey, and Lewis, Delaware. Here, the cars are sunk 90 feet to create a sheltered breeding and feeding ground for marine life.
It was pretty amazing. Actually, the day that we dropped cars off South Carolina, there were already barracuda in the cars investigating. And then when they went back 6 months later, the video was absolutely amazing. Turtles, and sharks, and barracuda, all kinds of beautiful sunfish. It was, yeah, it was pretty amazing.
When the cars were in operation in New York City, it was $2 to get on. Right now, the fish will ride for free for another 40 years or so.
Another workday begins in Manhattan. What may look like urban chaos is in fact a nexus of sophisticated transportation systems designed to keep people moving, business thriving, and food delivered around the clock.
There's always a restaurant open, there's always a car, club, bar. Something's always going on in New York.
Run by proud New Yorkers,
we move America, we just don't know where we're moving.
They keep the engines tuned, the computers linked, the wheels greased, and the masses fed.
It's really about the people, bottom line.
New York is like the loud guy at the bar that is very entertaining.
It's like the mother city.
This is NYC Inside Out.
I love that it's a city that's always in motion. I wouldn't live here for any other way.
New York, New York. So nice they named it twice.